Hey.
She was pretty and popular with her whole life ahead of her.
She was so motivated and had a really bright future.
She was outgoing. Everybody loved her.
She was a really fun person.
But tragedy strikes and leaves a community terrified.
She's burnt. The only thing that was recognizable on her was her face.
It was just such a shock.
Everyone was so afraid.
The community was grappling with the question of why this happened.
And someone knows the truth.
She was only 15. She never even had the chance to live.
He had an incredible secret and an incredible burden.
I have information on an open murder case.
If that young man had not entered the police station that day, we would still not know who killed Jasmine Moore.
August 9th, 2009, Alma, Georgia. It's Sunday morning in this tiny rural town, 3.5 hours south of Atlanta.
Alma, Georgia is a very quaint town, family-oriented town.
Definitely a very close-knit community, very quiet. It's somewhere that you feel very at home.
Most folks are already on their way to Sunday service when Pamela Moore walks up to her front door.
Pamela worked the night shift at a local factory and had just made it home. Jasmine?
She was very active in church. Our community is very church-oriented.
You what?
She unlocks the door, calling out to her 15-year-old daughter.
Jasmine? You ready for church?
But Pamela is met by a startling scene.
There was smoke coming from the hallway.
Jasmine?
It seemed to be coming from the back of the house.
In a panic,
Jasmine!
Pamela runs towards Jasmine's room.
Jasmine!
In the hallway, Pamela finds her daughter, unresponsive and covered in blood and char.
I couldn't imagine finding my child like she found her child.
In the summer of 2009, Jasmine Moore was looking forward to her sophomore year at Bacon County High School.
How many kids are excited about going back to school from summer break? But she was excited to go back to school.
She was very popular. She was in the band, and everybody liked her because she had such an outgoing personality.
Hey.
She lived down the road from me, and we rode the same school bus. And that's how we first got to know each other. Jasmine was somebody who always had a smile on her face. She loved to laugh. She was a jokester. She was just somebody that would make you want to laugh with her.
Also text me, okay? Yeah, I will. Okay. I'll see you. All right, bye.
When it came to her studies, though, Jasmine had a serious side.
Jasmine was very smart. She was on the road and stuff.
She was involved in a lot of clubs and extracurricular activities.
Jasmine was so ambitious. She had so many dreams. She actually wanted to join the military.
She always told me she wanted to be like a big brother, to go into the Army. And I told her she can do it. That's what she wanted to do. She should do that because she was a small person, but she had a big heart.
At just 15 years old, Jasmine's big heart was already falling hard for her classmate, 17-year-old Dion Smith.
Hey, Jasmine.
Hi, Dion. Jasmine and Dion Smith met at school. He was a really popular guy, and this is what drawn Jasmine to him.
Hey, can I take you to class?
Yeah.
Thank you.
He was very charismatic, you know, like if you were his age or around his age, you'd want to hang out with him.
But Jasmine wanted much more.
She wanted to be his girlfriend. She wanted something a little more serious.
Dion was the guy that Jasmine dreamed of, her fantasy boyfriend.
Jasmine's fantasy became a reality when she and Dion began seeing each other.
Hi. Jasmine and Dion did end up seeing one another several times over the summer.
How are you?
Good. You look amazing.
Thank you.
It was one of those summer romance relationships. Dion was the older, popular guy.
You ready to go?
Yes.
Come on.
And Jasmine was really into him.
To Jasmine, Dion was the guy of her dreams. But Dion had a reputation amongst their classmates.
He was kind of a ladies' man.
He was still trying to be what most 17-year-old boys are, a playboy, and trying to talk to multiple girls at the same time.
Yet Jasmine was convinced that Dion would realize she was all he needed.
She was ready for church bells and living together forever, which at 15 most girls are. Every guy they see, oh, I'm going to get married to him.
Jasmine loved the idea of her summer fling with Dion carrying into her sophomore year.
This was going to be her year, her time to shine with this new guy, this perfect guy.
But that Sunday morning,
Jasmine,
the day before classes are set to begin,
you ready for church?
Jasmine's mother comes home from work to a horrifying discovery.
Jasmine. Jasmine!
Jasmine. It's so shocking for Mom. She was devastated. Jasmine.
After finding Jasmine's body on the floor, Pamela calls out for help.
Somebody! Help me! Run!
Minutes later, police and firefighters arrive on the scene. But it only takes a moment for first responders to realize that this crime is unlike anything this small town has seen.
Inside the house, first responders find Jasmine's mother on the floor, cradling her daughter.
I can't even begin to imagine what it was like for Jasmine's mother. That was her only child.
She was severely burnt all over her body. The only thing that was recognizable on her was her face.
Blood on the walls tells police this was clearly a homicide.
As horrific as her burns are, it's obvious to first responders that the fire is not what killed her.
You could tell there was a struggle.
No one should have to die that way, especially someone that's sweet like that, don't do anything. She didn't do drugs, she didn't do any kind of stuff like that. You know, just, there was no reason for it.
A 15-year-old girl, very well liked. Why would someone brutally murder her?
At the beginning of August 2009, 15-year-old Jasmine Moore was counting down the days, looking forward to the start of school.
Jasmine is actually finishing up her summer and getting ready to go start the new sophomore school year.
She was very excited for the first day of school. She liked to socialize. She was a social butterfly.
But she was more excited by her blossoming romance with 17-year-old Dion Smith, who was entering his senior year of high school.
She was falling for him hard. She had a lot of future plans laid out, and he was the one for her.
They were hooking up, but she actually wanted something more.
However, on the Sunday before the start of the new school year, the small town of Alma is rocked by tragic news. Jasmine Moore's mother has arrived home from work to find Jasmine lying dead outside her bedroom door.
There's a lot of blood on the walls, and her body was badly charred.
As first responders arrive, they're shocked by the level of violence rarely seen in their quaint community. There's no doubt that Jasmine has been murdered.
It was the first crime scene like that I had been to. One that was so horrendous, so violent. So it was very shocking for me.
We're gonna check this out.
The condition of the body makes it difficult for officers at the scene to determine the exact cause of death.
She was severely burnt all over her body. She had some injuries to the back of her head.
The blood on the walls and floor allows police to follow the trail of the brutal attack.
It looked like the attack started in the bedroom, but it ended in the hallway.
Then the killer had apparently set Jasmine's body on fire. A missing smoke detector explains why no neighbors reported a fire alarm. It also proves someone intentionally tried to destroy evidence.
It was mainly in the hallway. It wasn't a very extensive fire. It went out pretty quickly.
After burning Jasmine's clothes, the flames sputtered out without burning the rest of the house.
Investigators hope that some forensic evidence survived the flames.
Since there was a struggle, there could still be traces of the killer's DNA under Jasmine's fingernails.
However, Alma's police force does not have their own forensic lab and must send samples to the Georgia Bureau of Investigation.
Hey, can you go ahead and get GBI on the phone?
Yeah.
We're gonna need him.
They have a whole lot more resources than we have, so they can get a lot more done quicker.
Yes, sir. We can.
Even without a detailed forensic analysis, the crime scene does yield some crucial information.
The house didn't look broken into. There was no forced entry, so it had to be somebody she knew and let in the house.
There was no evidence of a robbery either. The only thing missing was Jasmine's phone.
First responders were sure that this was not a random attack. It was definitely something personal.
Who could have done this to such a well-liked young woman? While waiting for the GBI forensics experts to arrive, investigators turned to Jasmine's mother for help to generate leads.
It's very hard because you want to comfort them, but at the same time, you've got to do your job and console her while trying to figure out what was going on.
We'll find out who did this, but we're gonna need your help. I'll try.
Through her grief, Jasmine's mother tries her best to answer questions.
Jasmine's mother told police that when she left for work at around 11 p.m., her daughter was home alone, getting ready for bed.
Did she ever have any friends over?
No, not while I was at work.
The rules was that she was not to have anybody over after her mom left for work.
When asked if Jasmine had a boyfriend, her mother says she's unaware of anyone in particular in Jasmine's life. She's also adamant Jasmine would not have let people into their home when she wasn't there.
You're sure no one was coming over?
Jasmine wouldn't do that.
Jasmine's mother tells police that Jasmine was not a troubled teen and would regularly check in with her when home alone.
They always communicated. She always called her mom, talked to her mom, so they had a pretty good relationship.
That's when Jasmine's mother reveals some tension between Jasmine and her boyfriend, a man named Henry Wilton.
Jasmine's parents had split up when she was young. Her dad remarried, and her mom had began dating a guy named Henry Wilton a while back.
According to Jasmine's mom, her daughter and her boyfriend didn't get along, mainly because Jasmine did not like all the time Henry spent at their home.
Jasmine's mom tells police she has occasionally give keys to her boyfriend.
Would anyone have a reason to hurt Jasmine?
No. Nobody want to hurt my baby.
She didn't have any enemies. She was well liked. Everybody loved her in the community.
Anyone else been over here recently?
Just Ron from next door.
All right, let's go ahead.
Ron was the neighbor who called 911 for Jasmine's mother. She told police they had gotten to be pretty good friends.
He was closest neighbor due to the location. He was over there a lot, and he was just always around.
And if he'd been around when the murder occurred, he could be an important witness.
Ron Stanley?
Naturally, police are gonna go talk to him. They wanna know, what does he know?
Mr. Stanley?
Mr. Stanley,
Yes,
mind if I ask you a few questions about last night?
I suppose.
We were just doing quick little, hey, did you see anybody go in the house? Did you see anybody around the house? Did you hear anybody screaming? Did you hear an argument? Did you smell smoke? Did you see any flames? He was standoffish, didn't really want to talk.
Investigators are soon asking a different question.
What happened to your eye there?
He had a black eye, scratches on him.
The crime scene had clear evidence of a struggle.
Could Ron's injuries be connected to Jasmine's horrific murder?
So much pointed towards him.
He's really looking like a suspect.
Officers investigating the murder of 15-year-old Jasmine Moore have just uncovered what could be their first possible suspect, the victim's next-door neighbor, Ron Stanley.
When police interviewed Ron Stanley, he had a black eye, scratches on him,
Was it possible that Ron's injuries were the result of a fight with Jasmine that turned deadly?
It looked like she struggled at the crime scene, so it just makes him look suspicious.
Ron's injuries aren't the only thing investigators find suspicious.
He was standoffish, didn't really want to talk, didn't want to tell us where he was at, what he was doing that night.
It's only when police asked point blank about the injuries to his arms and face that Ron offered an explanation.
What happened to your eye?
I got in a bar fight.
The only thing that he did tell police is that he was out at a club till about 3 a.m. He came home and went to sleep.
Yeah, you got in a bar fight with. Did you know him? Duke. That's what they call him.
Know his last name?
Nah.
Have you been next door to the Morris House, City Town?
Nah, I've never been over there.
Never?
No.
But her mom had just said that he's been over there before. And that was a big red flag for police.
He's been in the house multiple times, so he's gonna have fingerprints there. He's gonna have evidence that he's been in that house. So why can't you tell us that your friends that you go over all the time hang out?
Now investigators believe Ron is hiding something. Police ask Ron for his fingerprints and a DNA sample.
He was a primary suspect, and we all thought that he done it. So much pointed towards him.
Despite the fire, detectives were hoping to find some trace of the killer's DNA under Jasmine's fingernails. They also needed to follow up on his alibi.
But for the moment, detectives didn't have enough for an arrest.
After police leave Ron, they learn that news of Jasmine's murder has already spread through town.
We were sitting in church and the pastor made an announcement.
He started saying, just this morning, we got the news of a girl, Jasmine Moore, found dead in her home. And I just looked at my mom in shock.
There was nothing there that signaled that she should be a victim of a crime like this.
As fear and sadness grip Alma, investigators drop in on the club where Jasmine Moore's neighbor, Ron Stanley, claimed to have been the night before.
Is he telling the truth? Was he really at the club?
Detectives were sure that Ron's alibi was about to come crashing down.
Investigators are discouraged by what they learn.
Stanley was cleared due to witnesses being able to place that he was at the club, got into a fight at the club with the guy that he says he got into a fight with.
With Ron Stanley ruled out, investigators hope Jasmine's fellow students can give some insight into who might have wanted to hurt her.
Our graduating class is less than 100 students. Everybody knows everybody.
On Monday morning, when investigators arrive, they find students and teachers alike struggling to process the awful news.
Usually the first day of school, students get very excited. You're getting to see all your friends you haven't seen in a while, but it definitely had an air that something was different, something wasn't right.
Officer McElroy and an agent from the Georgia Bureau of Investigation tackle the difficult task of interviewing the students who knew Jasmine best.
Hey, Amber, can we ask you a few questions?
Yeah. I was interviewed to see if I knew anything that could connect somebody to what happened.
We understand that Jasmine was having some issues with her mom's boyfriend.
They butted heads, but she never really said anything about him being violent.
Do you think there's anyone else that could have done it?
I'm sorry, I really can't.
Unfortunately, I didn't know anything that would help. She was kind of private about her personal life.
That's all we had to ask, okay?
Jasmine's mom had mentioned that her daughter and Henry didn't get along, so police figured they needed to focus in on Henry.
With no other leads, investigators ask Henry Wilton to come in for an interview.
So we hear that you and Jasmine don't get along.
Well, she talked back. You know how teenagers are.
Henry's story lined up more or less with what detectives heard from Jasmine's mom.
But then, Henry says something that makes investigators do a double take.
You two ever been alone in the house?
Oh, yeah. But I never did anything to her. Like sexual.
That was a huge red flag for detectives. Why would he even suggest this?
Where were you Saturday night?
Well, Pam went to work, so I went to a party at a friend's house.
Did you go anywhere afterward?
No.
And you can back that up?
No. I was by myself.
With no witnesses to verify he was home the rest of the night, investigators had no way to determine if he was telling the truth. So all they could do was speculate.
After the interview, investigators take a sample of Henry's DNA. With nothing else to prove his involvement, investigators release Henry and move quickly to check his alibi.
The next move was to find out if Henry was in the vicinity the night that Jasmine was killed, so they pulled his phone records.
What they find would support Henry's claims of innocence.
His phone records backed up his story, so at that point, detectives didn't have any evidence to suggest that he was involved.
With Henry now an unlikely suspect, investigators turn their attention to Jasmine's cell phone records.
We started looking for who does she call, who's she texting, who does she text the most. Those are gonna be the people that you go to and start questioning.
They discovered that she's been texting several people the night of her death.
But there's one number she texted far more than any of the others.
She was texting Dion Smith.
He was one of the last people to have contact with Jasmine before all activity on her phone stopped.
But was that just a coincidence, or could that have had something to do with Jasmine's death?
Georgia investigators working the murder case of 15-year-old Jasmine Moore have just discovered that on the night of her death, the teenager had been texting with 17-year-old Dion Smith.
Police discovered in the phone records that when her mom went to work at 11, she had started texting Dion like crazy.
There was a lot of activity between 11 and 11:45 on her phone records between her and Dion.
After 11:45 on Saturday night, Jasmine never sent another text.
Obviously, Dion was someone detectives needed to talk to.
It's late Monday evening when investigators ask Dion down to the station to answer a few questions.
Thank you for coming to talk to us.
Hey, Dion. No problem. Can't believe that happened to Jasmine.
How well did you know Jasmine?
We hung out over the summer.
He presented himself as cool, calm, and collected. He said they were friends to a certain extent, maybe a little bit more.
Did you have a sexual relationship with Jasmine?
Yeah.
Did you see Jasmine on Saturday night?
No.
You guys talk?
We texted.
When they asked about the text messages, he said, yeah, Jasmine wanted me to come over, but I didn't.
Dion claimed he didn't want to get Jasmine in trouble.
And that was the rule. No boys should be over while mom was at work.
Where were you on Saturday night?
Dion tells investigators he was hanging out with his friend, Ty Murchison. Then the two walked to a nearby diner.
So if we talk to Ty, he's gonna be able to back you up.
Yeah, for sure.
You sure about that?
Positive.
Okay. We're gonna do a DNA swab on you.
Okay.
Okay.
Dion seemed more than willing to cooperate with the investigation.
Okay, open your mouth.
He willingly gave his DNA.
After investigators take Dion's fingerprints, the interview is over. The next morning, investigators bring Dion's friend, Ty Murchison, in for questioning.
You're a couple years ahead of Jasmine Moore, is that right?
Yes, ma'am. I'm a senior. Same as Dion.
Okay. So, what'd you guys do on Saturday night?
We were over at Dion's playing video games.
He says the same thing that Dion said. They didn't go see Jasmine. They were hanging out with each other. He said they left around 11 and walked to an all-night diner.
According to Ty, he and Dion were already on their way to the diner when Dion got Jasmine's first text.
Jasmine kept texting him, trying to get him to come over.
But Dion didn't go?
Well, ma'am.
Why not?
Because Dion didn't want to.
Sounds like she was pretty into Dion, though.
Yeah, she was, but she's 15. Me and Dion, we're gonna graduate this year.
Ty says that Dion had messed around with Jasmine over the summer, but now that school was starting and he was a senior, he wasn't ready for a serious relationship.
When did you go home?
Sunday morning. I spent the night on Dion's couch.
Ty's statement doesn't give investigators any grounds to hold him. But they're not ready to clear him either.
Ty could be lying to protect his friend.
Dion and Jasmine were talking that night. And Dion and Ty were walking around town that night.
They definitely had the time and the opportunity to walk to Jasmine's house and commit this murder.
However, what investigators don't have is a motive.
Why would these two classmates of hers want her dead?
From what I understand, they didn't have any record. I just never thought that they were capable of such a horrendous crime.
After following up with Ty and awaiting DNA results from the GBI, investigators have to move on from Dion as a suspect in Jasmine's murder. For now.
Everything he said checked out.
But on August 14th, 5 days after the murder, a witness comes forward whose story puts Dion and Ty back at the top of their suspect list.
She says that she saw Dion and Ty walking about a block from Jasmine's house the night she was murdered.
Less than 48 hours after 15-year-old Jasmine Moore's body was found in her home, investigators believed they had identified her likely killer, 17-year-old Dion Smith.
Dion had been seeing Jasmine on and off during the summer, and they had been texting each other on the night of the murder.
But proving Dion's guilt is a difficult task.
To start with, he was considered a strong suspect. We just could not pinpoint anything with him.
Especially after Dion's friend, Ty Murchison, confirms Dion's alibi.
Dion said he had nothing to do with it. He was not at Jasmine's house, that he was hanging out with Ty all night.
However, on August 14th, 5 days after Jasmine's body was discovered, a witness comes forward with some crucial information about the night Jasmine was killed.
The woman lived not far from Jasmine's house and says she saw Dion and Ty on the night of the murder.
Well, I just happened to be in a neighborhood the other night, and I saw Ty Murchison and Dion Smith going the other way.
She says that she saw Dion and Ty walking about a block from Jasmine's house.
Hey, how y'all doing?
Good. Doing well.
Good. So how's your mom?
She's doing better.
That's wonderful. Okay, well, you guys take care.
Has you? See you.
Okay.
She spoke to them, they spoke back. She did say it was odd running into them because she's never seen them in that area before.
Are you sure it was them?
I'm positive. I've been knowing Dion's mama since before he was born.
What time did you see them?
It was around 12:30 or so.
Were they going toward Jasmine's or away?
It was away, because I passed them at the corner of 4th and Wayne.
That put Dion and Ty a block away from Jasmine's house, approximately 45 minutes after she sent her last text to Dion.
They would have had enough time for Dion and Ty to kill Jasmine, set her body on fire. But the question still remains, why?
The witness's statement is enough to put Dion and Ty back on top of the suspect list. But investigators will need more proof to make an arrest.
We can't lock you up on suspicion. We need the physical evidence to prove that you were there, because the jury's not gonna convict on what we think or feel.
While investigators wait for the analysis from the GBI, they decide to pull Dion and Ty's phone records. But it's a dead end.
Those phone records showed that they were nowhere near Jasmine's home.
Then, on September 4th, 2009, investigators receive the forensic analysis and hope it will provide the break they need.
Jasmine's autopsy results and the DNA from all the various suspects had gone off to the Georgia Bureau of Investigations for analysis.
Detectives get the forensic report back, and it was really frustrating.
We couldn't get anything off her body, nothing under her fingernails, nothing that would say who done it.
There was also zero evidence of a sexual assault, so police were still without a motive.
Leads dry up. Now all investigators can do is hope someone knows something and is willing to come forward.
Police offer up a $10,000 reward for anyone who had any information to come forward and help them.
The authorities here were adamant that it was never a cold case. They continued to work their suspects and continued to work the people close to them and close to the victim.
They never let it go. It was always on everybody's mind.
2 years pass with no new leads.
The community began to wonder if we would ever know what really happened that day that Jasmine was killed.
Investigators have never been able to rule out Deon Smith and his friend, Ty Murchison, as suspects.
They didn't have everything that they needed. They're just waiting on that one break.
It was something we always kind of kept in the back of our head. Is there something that we could have done different? Did we collect all the evidence? Did we talk to all the right people? Why isn't somebody coming forward?
The long wait for justice is especially difficult for Jasmine's family.
That was bad. I mean, that just leaves us wondering all the time who did it.
Her family had a very hard time with us not being able to find who done it.
Then, late on the evening of June 7th, 2014, almost 5 years after Jasmine Moore was murdered, Ty Murchison walks into the police station.
In the 5 years since the murder, Ty had graduated high school, gotten a job, and started a family.
Can I help you?
He'd been baptized and wanted to clear his conscience of all of his past wrongdoing.
Apparently, there was still one sin that he needed to wash away.
I have information about an open murder case.
He said, I'm here to close out Jasmine's murder.
On June 7th, 2014, Ty Murchison, one of the 2 teenagers investigators previously suspected of killing Jasmine Moore, has just come forward, 5 years after the murder.
Tyrese walked into the sheriff's department and told them that he wanted to close the case.
Is this about Jasmine Moore?
Yes, ma'am.
Ty, tell me everything you know about that night. Why did you kill Jasmine?
It was Deon. He wanted her dead.
So he killed her.
Jasmine had told Deon that she was pregnant. Deon said, well, we're not gonna deal with that. We're gonna end the pregnancy.
Deon decided that he would rather kill Jasmine than be a father. What's really sick is that he didn't just want Jasmine dead. He wanted the baby gone also.
According to Ty, all Deon needed was the right opportunity. And by taking advantage of Jasmine's affection for him, he saw his chance.
When Jasmine texted Deon that Saturday night, he put the murder plot in motion.
Hey.
What's up, Jasmine?
Hi.
And Ty went with him.
After she let us in, I went and sat on the couch in the living room. And he took her back to the bedroom.
You okay?
We need to talk.
Okay.
And then he killed her?
No, not yet.
Were they fighting or arguing or yelling?
Yes, they were arguing.
About the baby?
I know we're young, but I feel like we can do this.
We're more than young. We're not ready, okay? I don't even like you.
I'm having this kid. You can be in this life or not, but I'm still happy.
I'm not about to be a mom. I'm not about to be a dad, okay?
Deon.
Ty says that it was during the argument that Deon attacked.
Yo, Deon.
From what Ty says, it just all happened all of a sudden.
But Jasmine's ordeal was far from over.
After the attack ended, Dion asked Tiberius to hit her with the hammer on her head to make sure she was dead.
I just don't know what was going through his head. I don't know if he was thinking maybe I should make sure she is dead so she doesn't suffer, or if I've got to do this so that he don't turn on me.
Paper.
Whatever Ty's reasons, he says that after Jasmine was dead, he and Dion scrambled to hide what they had done.
They went around the house grabbing trash. They put trash on top of her and lit her on fire. They really wanted to get rid of all evidence that tied them to Jasmine's murder.
Next, they removed the fire alarm so it wouldn't go off.
Ty says that once the fire was lit,
He get the hammer.
he and Dion fled, taking the hammer, fire alarm, and Jasmine's cell phone with them.
They got rid of the hammer and the cell phone, threw it in a storm drain.
Then with the evidence taken care of, they worked out what they were going to say if anybody asked them what they had been doing that night.
They had each other's back. They came up with a story and they stuck to it. They lived like nothing had happened.
For almost 5 years, it worked. But Ty Murchison couldn't forget what he'd done.
Lord, please forgive me. I just can't live with this. Forgive me.
Mr. Murchison made a commitment to Christ and knew that he had to confess what he had done.
Please forgive me. I just keep seeing her face and what we did to that poor girl.
He was having bad dreams. He was still seeing her face. Her memory was haunting him daily.
Officer McElroy shares one detail they learned from the autopsy.
Just so you know, there was no baby. She wasn't pregnant.
What do you mean?
Stand up. You're under arrest. Stand up.
There was no sign of a pregnancy or that she had been pregnant.
Was it simply a mistake on Jasmine's part, or could there be another explanation? No one really knew for sure.
Whatever the reason, Ty's confession is the breakthrough investigators needed to find justice for Jasmine Moore.
Come on.
The next day, detectives find Dion and they arrested him.
We interviewed Dion, and of course he lawyers up, doesn't want to talk.
The prosecution feels confident to move forward without Dion's cooperation. In April of 2016, Dion Smith goes on trial for murder.
Tiberius is the star witness.
He probably could have gone the rest of his life without this being known by anyone but Dion, and yet he came forward.
Tiberius worked out a plea deal.
He got 30 years, 20 for aggravated assault, and 10 for arson.
But will his testimony be enough to convict Dion of Jasmine's murder?
This whole time, he maintained that he had nothing to do with this.
He claimed that he wasn't there, that he didn't know what was going on, that he don't know why he was even brought up into it.
Will the jury believe Dion, or will they believe Ty?
He was convicted. He was sentenced to life in prison.
Tiberius came forward and did the right thing and at least gave the family and gave the community some closure.
If that young man had not entered the police station that day, we probably would still not know who killed Jasmine Moore.
That's what solved the case. His conscience. God just put a burden on him because the case needed to be solved.
While Ty's testimony brought justice for Jasmine, it couldn't erase the pain her family felt.
There was no reason for it. Point blank. No reason for it all.
The biggest tragedy about it is she was only 15. She was going to do something with her life and she was not given that opportunity. She never even had the chance to live.
She wanted to be something. And her mom will never get to see that.
A frozen December gale hauled down the concrete canyons of Manhattan in the winter of 1989, whipping snow against the limestone facade of an ultra-exclusive Upper East Side pre-war penthouse. Inside, behind reinforced mahogany double doors and private elevator access, a table was meticulously set for four: crystal wine glasses, sterling silver cutlery, and untouched porcelain plates cooling in the absolute stillness of a 20-room duplex. In the master dressing room, an open mahogany jewelry casket sat beneath soft track lighting, surrounded by designer luggage bags unzipped and packed with winter couture. A diamond tennis bracelet lay casually on the vanity, beside an unlit cigarette and a half-empty glass of vintage champagne. There was no sign of forced entry, no shattered glass, no bloodstains on the parquet floors, and no struggle registered by the round-the-clock building doormen stationed at the marble foyer below. Yet, 24-year-old Eleanor Vance, sole heiress to a $400 million Wall Street shipping and real estate dynasty, had vanished into the freezing New York night as if erased from the very fabric of reality. The silence that followed was deafening, breaking across the tabloids of New York like a sudden, violent thunderclap. By sunrise on December 14, 1989, police cruisers, unmarked detective sedans, and bank of television broadcast vans clogged the curb outside 740 Park Avenue. Yellow crime scene tape fluttered frantically in the bitter winter wind, cordoning off the canopy entrance where high society figures, international financiers, and foreign diplomats walked past in stunned, muted horror. The headlines hit the newsstands with blistering urgency. Heiress vanishes from high-security penthouse, $400 million fortune left behind. Kidnapping fears grip Manhattan elite. The NYPD launched one of the most massive, high-profile missing persons investigations in the history of the department, deploying hundreds of detectives, forensic teams, and Port Authority agents to canvass every airport terminal, train station, and subway tunnel across the tri-state area. Eleanor Vance was not merely a wealthy socialite. She was the golden child of Manhattan high society, an accomplished equestrian, a patron of modern art, and a young woman standing on the threshold of inheriting absolute financial control over one of the most powerful corporate empires on the eastern seaboard. Her father, the ruthless shipping magnate Charles Vance, had built an unassailable financial empire through decades of aggressive corporate takeovers, real estate consolidation, and untouchable political influence. But in the private corridors of the Vance family townhouse, beneath the dazzling chandeliers and antique oil paintings, dark fractures had begun to spread. Behind closed doors, private investigators would later learn that Eleanor had grown increasingly reclusive, paranoid, and profoundly alienated from the cutthroat boardroom politics of her family, expressing deep terror over the ruthless corporate enforcers and political fixers who constantly orbited her father's inner circle. When detectives processed the penthouse, the absence of clues became the most disturbing clue of all. Eleanor's passport, birth certificate, checkbooks, and private credit cards were all sitting untouched inside her desk drawer. Her luxury sedan remained parked in its designated space inside the building's private subterranean garage, its engine cold and undisturbed. The doorman on duty swore under oath that he had never seen Eleanor exit through the main lobby, nor had the service elevator or basement freight doors registered any activity during the overnight hours. It was as though a living human being had dissolved into thin air inside a locked, heavily guarded fortress of privilege. As the days turned into weeks, the investigation spiraled into an agonizing labyrinth of dead ends, false ransom demands, and shadowy sightings that evaporated under police scrutiny. The Federal Bureau of Investigation entered the case, treating the disappearance as an extortion kidnapping orchestrated by international syndicates or rival corporate interests seeking leverage against the Vance shipping empire. Tapped phone lines inside the penthouse hummed with static as federal agents waited in vain for a single call, a single voice, or a single demand for money. But the phone never rang. No ransom note ever arrived. The $400 million trust fund sat completely dormant, accumulating millions in annual interest while the woman it was built for remained a ghost. Rumors exploded across the city's gossip columns and sensationalist evening broadcasts. Had Eleanor been murdered and buried beneath the concrete foundations of a mob-controlled construction project in Queens? Had she been smuggled out of the harbor aboard an international cargo container? Or had she been the victim of an inside hit orchestrated by family associates vying for control of the vast estate? The Vance family hired private intelligence firms, dispatched teams of mercenary investigators across Europe and South America, and offered an unprecedented $5 million cash reward for any credible lead. But the world returned only an impenetrable wall of silence. As the years ground relentlessly forward, the media circus gradually moved on, leaving behind a frozen archive of yellowed newspaper clippings, untouched evidence boxes, and a family empire that slowly withered under the weight of unresolved grief. Charles Vance died in 1999 without ever learning the fate of his only daughter, his will leaving the entire $400 million fortune locked in a perpetual judicial trust, waiting for a woman who seemed destined never to return. The penthouse at 740 Park Avenue was eventually liquidated. The case file was stamped Unsolved Cold Case 89-1214 New York, and the name Eleanor Vance slipped into the realm of legendary Manhattan ghost stories, a tragic symbol of ultimate wealth swallowed by an impossible mystery. The seismic breakthrough detonated 37 years later, in the late summer of 2026, not in the glamorous boardrooms of New York City, but in a small, dusty coastal village nestled along the rugged cliffs of the Pacific Northwest. A routine biometric digital audit conducted during a minor regional passport renewal flag triggered an instantaneous, red-level algorithmic alert at the National Crime Information Center in Washington, D.C. A 61-year-old local landscape painter and community bookstore volunteer, living under the quiet, unassuming name of Margaret Maggie Cole, had submitted a thumbprint that matched, point for point and ridge for ridge, the pristine latent prints lifted from a crystal champagne glass inside an Upper East Side penthouse on a freezing December night in 1989. The discovery blew the 37-year-old cold case wide open, unleashing a joint task force of federal marshals and veteran NYPD cold case detectives who converged on the quiet coastal town to unravel an astonishing tale of calculated evasion, fabricated identities, and the total renunciation of unimaginable wealth. The ghost of Park Avenue was alive, and the staggering truth behind her vanishing was about to shatter decades of assumptions, rewriting the history of one of the most sensational missing heiress cases the world had ever seen. The biometric alert pinged inside the National Crime Information Center in Clarksburg, West Virginia, at 3:14 a.m. on August 4, 2026, cutting through decades of digital static like an electrical current. It was a 22-point ridge match across the right thumb and left index finger, a pristine mathematical alignment between an old ink-rolled latent card filed in the NYPD cold case archives on December 15, 1989, and a routine digital scan transmitted from a modest post office branch in Astoria, Oregon. To the automated system, it was simply an anomaly flag. But to the specialized forensic investigators monitoring the unclosed files of the late 20th century, it was an impossibility resurrected. The missing heiress of Park Avenue was breathing, walking, and renewing an ordinary blue passport 3,000 miles away from the penthouse where she had supposedly died. Within 4 hours, the case was transferred to the joint custody of the United States Marshals Service Special Operations Group and the NYPD Major Case Squad's Cold Case Homicide Unit. Special Agent Marcus Kane and Senior Detective Elena Cruz were dispatched on the first morning flight out of John F. Kennedy International Airport, carrying 2 leather binders that contained 37 years of accumulated tragedy, yellowed crime scene Polaroids of the undisturbed table set for 4, the transcript of Charles Vance's frantic 1989 press conferences, and the forensic documentation of a ghost who had vanished without leaving a trace of blood, a broken latch, or a single footprint in the snow. The Pacific Northwest greeted the federal team with a dense, gray sea fog that clung to the towering Douglas firs along Highway 101. Their destination was Manzanita, a windswept, quiet coastal enclave of 1,200 residents perched between dense coastal rainforests and the crashing breakers of the Pacific Ocean. It was a world entirely removed from the granite facades, doorman canopies, and cutthroat boardrooms of Manhattan's Upper East Side. Here, life was measured by the tides, the seasonal influx of storm watchers, and the smell of cedar wood smoke drifting from weathered shake-shingle cottages. In the center of the village stood the Driftwood Quill, an independent bookshop and local watercolor gallery. According to municipal tax records, utility registrations, and local bank filings spanning nearly 3 decades, the property was owned by Margaret Maggie Cole. In the community, Maggie was known as a gentle, soft-spoken woman in her early 60s who wore cable-knit sweaters, drove a faded green 1998 Subaru wagon, painted dramatic seascapes of the Oregon coastline, and volunteered at the local wildlife rehabilitation center. She had lived in the town since the mid-1990s, blending seamlessly into the eccentric, tight-knit fabric of the coast, known by everyone, suspected by no one. For 48 hours, the Federal City Task Force conducted discreet, high-resolution surveillance from an unmarked utility van parked near the town green. They photographed the woman as she unlocked the bookshop doors at 8 a.m., watered the hanging fuchsia baskets on the cedar porch, and chatted casually with a local postman over a paper cup of black coffee. Facial recognition software mapped the nodal points of her face against the 1989 high society portraits of 24-year-old Eleanor Vance. The spacing of the orbital bones, the high cheek structure, the line of the jaw, and the distinctive arch of the left brow produced an indisputable 99.6% match. There had been no offshore grave. There had been no mob-controlled concrete burial in Queens. There had been no international syndicate of human traffickers. The $400 million heiress had systematically executed the most flawless, enduring voluntary disappearance in modern criminal history. On the morning of August 7, 2026, as the coastal fog began to burn off beneath a pale summer sun, Agent Kane and Detective Cruz walked across the gravel path and stepped through the front door of the Driftwood Quill. The brass bell above the lintel chimed softly. The woman standing behind the low wooden counter did not look up immediately from her ledger. "Good morning," she said in a quiet, melodic voice that carried the faint, indelible cadence of classical East Coast diction. "Let me know if you're looking for anything specific in the local history section." Detective Cruz placed her badge on the polished timber counter, followed by a laminated black and white copy of the original 1989 NYPD Missing Persons Bulletin. The image on the paper showed a radiant 24-year-old socialite in a black velvet evening gown, smiling beneath the chandeliers of the Plaza Hotel. "Eleanor Vance," Cruz said quietly, the sound of the name hanging in the quiet room like a dropped weight. "It's time to talk about December 13th, 1989. The woman froze. Her pen remained suspended over the open ledger for 5 long seconds. Slowly, she laid the instrument down, looked up, and met the eyes of the detectives. There was no terror in her face, no sudden panic, and no desperate attempt to run. Instead, her shoulders visibly dropped, exhaling a breath that seemed to have been held in the chambers of her chest for nearly 4 decades. "I wondered," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, "how long it would take the world to catch up." In the back room of the bookstore, surrounded by stacks of vintage paperbacks and stretched watercolor canvases, the complete, unvarnished anatomy of an impossible escape began to unfold on an encrypted audio recorder. Eleanor Vance did not ask for a lawyer. She did not invoke rights or hide behind legal technicalities. For the first time since she stepped out into a blizzard 37 years earlier, the heiress spoke with total, unsparing candor about the night she chose to die so that she could live. The narrative dismantled every single theory that had driven decades of sensationalist tabloid headlines and multi-million-dollar FBI investigations. The Gilded Cage of Coercion. Eleanor described an environment within the Vance family empire that was not merely wealthy, but deeply criminal, controlling, and violently coercive. Her father, Charles Vance, had positioned her not as a beloved daughter, but as a strategic asset to be married off to an influential shipping consortium executive to consolidate a maritime shipping monopoly under federal antitrust investigation. The whistleblower's terror. 3 weeks before her disappearance, Eleanor had discovered that her signature had been forged on several offshore corporate bank instruments in the Bahamas and Zurich, transferring hundreds of millions of dollars in untaxed shipping revenues to pay off corrupt dock union bosses and political fixers. When she confronted her father, he threatened to have her permanently committed to a private psychiatric sanatorium in upstate New York if she ever spoke to federal prosecutors. The methodical architecture of vanishing, Eleanor spent 6 months planning her absolute exit. Utilizing private cash she had withdrawn in small increments from safe deposit boxes over 2 years, she secured high-grade identity documentation belonging to a deceased infant named Margaret Cole who had died in Idaho in 1965. The Ghost of Park Avenue. On the night of December 13, 1989, Eleanor set the dinner table, opened the champagne, left her jewelry and packed luggage in plain sight to simulate an abrupt interruption, and slipped out of the penthouse wearing a maintenance coverall she had stolen from the basement laundry room weeks prior. Carrying only $8,000 in cash taped to her torso, she exited through a subterranean coal chute into the adjacent alleyway, completely bypassing the doormen, the lobby cameras, and the private security grid. She boarded an interstate bus under the howling cover of the 1989 blizzard, riding westward across the frozen continent, changing buses 8 times, discarding every luxury item she owned, and never once looking back toward the city that had defined her existence. She arrived in the Pacific Northwest with nothing but a fake birth certificate, a new name, and a fierce, absolute determination never to be found by the empire she had fled. For 37 years, Eleanor watched from the quiet fringes of the country as her father spent millions on private armies to hunt her down. She watched through library newspapers as the headlines raged, as the rewards grew, and as her father died alone in 1999, his fortune locked away in an untouchable judicial trust. She never claimed a single cent. She never reached out to an old friend. She chose the scent of salt water, the solitude of painting, and the modest life of an independent bookseller over the $400 million golden prison that had nearly destroyed her soul. By nightfall, the realization swept through the federal justice system. Eleanor Vance was not a victim of a homicide, nor was she a perpetrator of a violent crime. The statute of limitations on fraudulent documentation had expired decades ago, leaving the Department of Justice, the New York probate courts, and the surviving trustees of the $400 million Vance fortune facing an unprecedented legal, financial, and moral dilemma. The ghost of Park Avenue had been found, not in a grave, but in the peaceful light of an Oregon coastline. The 61-year-old woman who had conquered time and identity stood as living proof that true freedom has no price tag, and that sometimes the only way to survive an empire is to let it believe you are already dead. The encrypted transmission containing Eleanor Vance's recorded confession traveled from the Oregon Coastal Bureau across 3,000 miles of fiber optic wire, detonating inside one police plaza in Lower Manhattan with the destructive force of a controlled demolition. Inside the glass-walled command conference room of the NYPD Major Case Squad, veteran investigators and high-ranking department chiefs stood in stunned, absolute silence as the audio file played over the central speakers. The voice, calm, measured, and unmistakable in its patrician East Coast inflection, was laying bare the inner mechanics of an escape that had humiliated 3 generations of federal agents, private detectives, and forensic specialists. Outside the municipal building, the August heat of New York hung heavy and thick over the city streets, but inside the command suite, the atmosphere was freezing. The case of Eleanor Vance was not merely an unresolved file. It was a foundational myth of modern American crime, a textbook case study on the presumed violent vulnerability of extreme wealth. For nearly 4 decades, criminal justice textbooks had cited the empty penthouse at 740 Park Avenue as the quintessential locked room mystery, a haunting warning of mob hits, international extortion cartels, and the absolute finality of maritime disappearances. Now, the entire narrative had collapsed into a single, breathtaking truth. The heiress had walked out under her own power through a basement coal chute, carrying nothing but a maintenance uniform and $8,000 in cash, because living as a ghost was preferable to remaining the prized property of an untouchable financial syndicate. By noon on August 8, 2026, the story ruptured the front pages of international media. News helicopters buzzed over the Manhattan skyline, hovering above the grand limestone facade of 740 Park Avenue, while broadcast vans barricaded the perimeter of the New York County Skagits Court on Chambers Street. The headlines were electric, dominating news feeds across the globe. The ghost of Park Avenue is alive. Missing heiress discovered after 37 years under fake identity. The $400 million escape. The legal and financial machinery that had kept the Vance estate frozen in time for 37 years ground to a violent halt. In the mahogany-paneled corridors of Wall Street private wealth firms and international corporate law practices, panic set in. The $400 million trust established by the late Charles Vance had grown under institutional compound management into an empire valued at well over $1.8 billion. The trust was structured around a rigid, perpetual clause. The principal and accumulated dividends could only be released upon definitive forensic proof of Eleanor's death or her living. Verified signature presented in open probate court before her 65th birthday. For decades, the secondary corporate beneficiaries, a web of offshore holding companies, former boardroom lieutenants, and distant cousins who had circled the estate like vultures, had filed annual petitions seeking a judicial declaration of presumed death. Every petition had been stymied by the stringent terms of the trust and the refusal of federal authorities to close the kidnapping file without a body. Now, the living signature had returned, not as a glamorous socialite returning to claim her throne, but as a 61-year-old landscape painter in an oversized wool cardigan who wanted nothing to do with the money that had stolen her youth. In Manzanita, Oregon, the tranquil coastal village was suddenly engulfed by an unprecedented media siege. Broadcast networks chartering private aircraft landed at regional airfields, deploying camera crews along Highway 101. Telephoto lenses aimed through the salt-crusted windows of the driftwood quill, capturing images of the modest bookshop with its hanging flower baskets and hand-painted wooden sign. Federal marshals and local deputies established a secure perimeter around Maggie Cole's cedar shingle cottage on the bluffs, shielding the woman who had spent 37 years building a fortress of anonymity from the flashing strobe lights of the modern paparazzi. Inside the cottage, Special Agent Marcus Kane and Detective Elena Cruz sat across from Eleanor at a weathered pine kitchen table overlooking the gray expanse of the Pacific Ocean. Before her lay a mountain of legal documents, federal immunity waivers, state identification certificates, and formal requests for appearances from the New York State Attorney General's office. Eleanor took a sip of black tea from a chipped ceramic mug, her gaze steady, unblinking, and entirely detached from the madness unfolding beyond her curtains. "They don't understand, do they?" she said softly, watching the seagulls drift across the fog line. "They think I'm going to put on a designer dress, fly to Manhattan, and sit in a boardroom signing stock certificates. They think this was an intermission. They don't realize that Eleanor Vance died 37 years ago in that coal chute, and the only person sitting in this chair is Maggie Cole." Detective Cruz leaned forward, placing a pen on the table. "Eleanor, or Maggie, you need to understand the legal reality. The state of New York, the Internal Revenue Service, and the probate executors cannot simply allow nearly $2 billion to sit in limbo. The moment your identity was confirmed by biometric print match, you became the sole, undisputed legal owner of the Vance Shipping and Real Estate Syndicate. You have the power to dismantle it, to donate it, or to claim it. But you cannot ignore it." Eleanor let out a soft, dry laugh. "My father spent his entire life believing that every human soul had a price tag that could be written on a bank draft. He believed that because he owned ships, buildings, and judges, he owned me. When I found those forged documents in 1989, when I saw my name signed to shipping manifests carrying undeclared weapons and laundered cash into South American ports, I realized what I was to him. I was the corporate shield. If the federal grand jury had indicted the company, I was the one whose name was on the charter. He would have let me go to a federal penitentiary to save his own empire." She picked up the pen, twirling it slowly between her fingers. "The night I left, the snow was falling so hard you couldn't see across the street. I remember the cold air hitting my face as I crawled out of that basement chute into the alley. I didn't have boots. I had thin canvas maintenance shoes. My feet were freezing. But when I reached the Port Authority bus terminal and bought a ticket for Chicago with cash from my pocket, I felt warmer than I had ever felt inside that 20-room penthouse. For the first time in 24 years, I belonged to myself. The revelations documented during the multi-hour debriefing in Oregon provided the final, missing pieces to decades of cold case anomalies. The phantom car sightings. Eleanor revealed that the reported sightings of luxury sedans near private airfields in upstate New York on the night of her disappearance were deliberate decoys orchestrated by her father's private security team. Charles Vance had known within hours that his daughter had fled, and he had fabricated evidence of an external kidnapping to prevent federal investigators from looking into the company's internal financial vaults. The dormant bank accounts. The reason no electronic trace was ever detected was that Eleanor never touched a single credit card, debit line, or institutional account. She lived strictly on cash earned through manual labor, cleaning coastal motels in Northern California, planting trees in reforestation projects across Washington state, and eventually selling handmade watercolor cards at local craft fairs until she saved enough to lease the bookstore. The flawless identity integration. The identity of Margaret Cole was acquired through the physical inspection of public cemetery archives in rural Idaho in the winter of 1990. Because the infant had died prior to the modernization of digital birth-death cross-matching systems, Eleanor was able to secure a certified copy of the birth certificate, obtain an authentic Social Security card, and build a pristine, unbroken paper trail spanning 36 years without ever raising a single red flag. As the afternoon sun dipped below the ocean horizon, casting long amber ribbons across the cedar floorboards, the Department of Justice in Washington announced an emergency press briefing. The Attorney General confirmed that following a comprehensive review of the historical files, no criminal charges would be filed against Eleanor Vance for the use of the deceased infant's identity. The statute of limitations on nonviolent document fraud had expired in 1995, and federal prosecutors determined that Eleanor had never utilized the identity to commit financial fraud, evade lawful criminal prosecution, or secure illicit government benefits. She was completely, unconditionally free under the law. Yet the greatest battle was only just beginning. In New York, the high-powered corporate law firms representing the secondary trust beneficiaries filed an emergency injunction in Manhattan Supreme Court, alleging that Eleanor was legally incompetent, suffering from long-term psychological dissociation, and unfit to manage or liquidate the multi-billion-dollar corporate trust. They demanded that the court appoint a permanent conservatorship to seize the assets and prevent the dissolution of the historic shipping conglomerate. The lines of war were drawn across the continent. The heiress who had walked away from an empire was being dragged back into the light of the legal arena, not as a defendant in a criminal dock, but as the master of an immense fortune she had spent a lifetime escaping. The stage was set for a historic, high-stakes confrontation in the heart of New York, a battle that would test the very definition of identity, family, and the true cost of human freedom. The legal battle for the Vance empire ignited like a powder keg across lower Manhattan on the humid morning of August 14, 2026. Inside the high-ceilinged marble rotunda of the New York County Supreme Court on Center Street, rows of television broadcast cameras stood lens to lens, their cables snaking across the stone floors like black vines. Every major financial publication, international wire service, and network news desk had mobilized to cover what the tabloids were already calling the trial of the century's ghost. Behind the heavy mahogany defense tables sat an army of 30 corporate litigators representing the Vance Maritime and Global Logistics Consortium and its secondary umbrella trust, the Atlantic Maritime Syndicate. Dressed in immaculate pinstripe suits, their leather briefcases overflowing with psychological evaluations from the 1980s, corporate charter bylaws, and affidavits from high society psychiatrists, the consortium's legal team prepared to execute a ruthless, scorched-earth strategy to legally declare Eleanor Vance mentally incompetent, brand her 37-year voluntary exile as an incurable psychotic fugue state, and strip her of every ounce of authority over the $1.8 billion fortune left behind by her father. Leading the corporate offensive was Harrison Sterling Thorne, a legendary Wall Street litigator who had built his career protecting the fortunes of robber baron dynasties. Thorne approached the bench with cold, theatrical gravitas, placing 2 heavy leather binders before the presiding judge, the Honorable Victoria Stirlingbanks. "Your Honor," Thorne began, his booming voice echoing through the packed gallery, "the person claiming to be Eleanor Vance has spent nearly 4 decades living under a stolen identity, working as a clerk in a coastal village, completely detached from the reality of global commerce. To hand the reins of an international shipping conglomerate, a critical pillar of eastern seaboard logistics employing 11,000 workers, to an individual who spent 37 years hiding behind the name of a dead infant is not merely irresponsible, it is an act of economic suicide. We demand the immediate appointment of an institutional conservatorship to preserve the assets of the Vance estate." The gallery murmured with electric tension. For 3 days, corporate retained psychiatrists took the stand, analyzing Eleanor's 1989 departure through the lens of severe dissociative trauma, paranoia, and self-destructive mania. They argued that leaving a 20-room penthouse, a fleet of luxury automobiles, and an untouchable inheritance to scrub floors in California and plant trees in Washington was definitive, clinical proof of a fractured mind incapable of managing wealth. Then, on the morning of August 18, 2026, the heavy double doors at the back of the courtroom swung open. The room fell into an absolute, breathless silence. Eleanor Vance walked down the central aisle unescorted. She did not wear designer haute couture, nor did she arrive with an entourage of private security guards and public relations consultants. She wore a simple, tailored charcoal wool coat over an unadorned ivory silk blouse, her silver-streaked hair tied back neatly, her posture erect and calm. Beside her walked only 2 people, Detective Elena Cruz, who had flown in from Oregon as an official state witness to her identification, and Sarah Vance Montgomery, a pro bono civil rights attorney and distant cousin who had severed ties with the corporate syndicate decades earlier. Eleanor did not look at the cameras flashing wildly behind the gallery partition. She walked directly to the petitioner's table, took her seat, and placed a single, worn manila folder on the polished wood. When Judge Stirlingbanks called for her sworn testimony, Eleanor stepped up to the witness box with steady, deliberate steps. The court reporter's hands hovered over the steno machine as Eleanor placed her hand on the Bible, swearing to tell the whole truth. For the next 4 hours, Eleanor dismantled 4 decades of corporate mythology with the precision of a surgeon and the unshakable clarity of a woman who had nothing left to lose. She did not speak of madness. She spoke of ledger numbers. Pulling documents from her folder, Eleanor produced carbon copy maritime shipping manifests and internal bank transfer receipts dated November and December of 1989. Documents she had smuggled out in the lining of her maintenance coveralls on the night she crawled through the coal chute. "Mr. Thorne claims I suffered a mental break," Eleanor said, her voice resonant, clear, and utterly devoid of fear. "He claims that leaving my father's house was proof of insanity. Let the court examine what I was actually running from." She submitted the documents into evidence, walking the court through a devastating paper trail that the late Charles Vance had spent millions trying to erase from existence. The Panamanian shell accounts, detailed evidence showing that 3 weeks prior to her disappearance, 24 separate commercial container vessels registered under Eleanor's name had been used to transport undeclared industrial machine tools and unlicensed arms shipments into Central American war zones, with the payments laundered through dummy holding companies in Zurich. The forged power of attorney, forensic analysis proving that Charles Vance had forged Eleanor's signature on 72 corporate indemnification waivers, ensuring that if federal customs agents or naval blockades intercepted the contraband, sole legal liability would fall entirely upon his 24-year-old daughter. The coercive sanatorium threat, a certified memorandum dated December 8, 1989, from Charles Vance's personal physician, detailing arrangements to have Eleanor involuntarily sedated and committed to a private neurological facility in Switzerland the moment she raised objections to the board of directors. "I did not run away because I was sick." Eleanor looked directly into the eyes of the corporate litigators. "I ran away because I was the only person in that house who was sane. My father did not build an inheritance for me, He built a bunker, and he planned to use my life as the sandbags to absorb the blast. I chose poverty over prison.
It chose anonymity over complicity.
And for 37 years, while this consortium made billions on the foundation of that corruption, I lived a life where every dollar I spent was earned by my own hands, without blood on the ledger. The revelation detonated across the courtroom like a physical blow. The pinstriped attorneys at the corporate table scrambled, whispering frantically into mobile devices, their faces pale as the realization settled in. Eleanor Vance was not an unstable runaway. She was the ultimate whistleblower, holding the original receipts of a corporate empire's darkest crimes. Judge Sterling Banks reviewed the newly submitted exhibits, her expression hardening with every turned page. When she lowered the files, she looked across the courtroom at Harrison Thorne. "Mr. Thorne," the judge said, her voice cutting through the room like a steel blade, "this court finds no evidence of incompetence, dissociation, or incapacity. What this court sees before it is a woman of extraordinary resilience, extraordinary intellect, and absolute clarity of purpose. The petition for an involuntary conservatorship is denied with prejudice." The judge struck her gavel with a resounding crack that echoed through the marble chamber. Eleanor Vance is the sole, verified, and undisputed owner of the Vance estate, its holdings, its trusts, and all accumulated interest. The court recognizes her full, unencumbered authority to take immediate possession of all assets under the 1989 Testamentary Trust. Pandemonium erupted in the gallery. Photographers scrambled for the exits, journalists dictated frantic updates into their phones, and the court